Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. When a proud Montana rancher refuses to bow to an overreaching HOA queen obsessed with silence and suburban perfection, all hell breaks loose, literally. Cows escape, chaos reigns, and one woman's crusade against country filth spirals into a national scandal. You won't believe how it ends. I'm Cody Hale. 37 calloused hands, boots that haven't been cleaned since I bought them, and the proud owner of 90 acres of rugged, honest Montana land. This ranch has been in my family since my granddad fenced off the first acre with nothing but barbed wire and pure stubbornness. My dad and I have raised cattle here since before I could spell the word livestock, and what we've built isn't just a farm, it's a legacy. Our cattle aren't your run-of-the-mill mooers. These are award-winning, genetically selected bloodlines, beef and dairy champions bred for strength, endurance, and quality. Some of them are worth more than my truck. Combined, over $200,000 in hooves and horns. We've got contracts with top-tier distributors. Restaurants in New York and Tokyo serve cuts from our stock like it's Wagyu from Wyoming. I've always thought of the ranch as a buffer from the rest of the world. Out here, the horizon stretches so wide, your thoughts feel like they have room to breathe. The mornings are filled with fog and the low, gentle sound of cows greeting the sun. Our kind of noise, the kind that says life is working. That peace, that rhythm, it's what I live for. But peace, as I've learned, is a fragile thing, especially when your southern boundary backs right up against a brand new master-planned slice of Stepford suburbia called Whisper Ridge. At first, I didn't give them much thought. Let them have their turf, I thought. They've got their homeowners association, their speed bumps, their identically trimmed bushes. We've got dirt, freedom, and cows that'll headbutt you if you stand too close. It should have been simple. Then came Karen Lynch. First time I saw her, she was standing at the property line in some kind of linen pantsuit, holding a clipboard like she was about to rate my fence's emotional stability. I was mending a section of wire, and she didn't even wait to introduce herself before she let it fly. Do you realize your cows are visible from our walking trail? It ruins the ambiance for our residents. I blinked at her, sweat running down my neck. Ma'am, this is a ranch. The cows live here. She gave a tight-lipped smile like I'd just confirmed her worst fear. That was the first tremor. Within the week, I started getting typed letters, real old-school passive-aggressive stuff. Please consider relocating your livestock structures. Noise levels from animal activity exceed community comfort standards. A privacy wall of at least 8 feet is requested to separate your property from ours. I replied once politely. This is agricultural land, not subject to HOA jurisdiction. My cattle are where they belong. The law backs me up. I figured that would be the end of it. But then again, I didn't know Karen Lynch. At first, I tried to laugh it off. Karen's letters were so formally aggressive, they read like a bad romance between a spreadsheet and a cease and desist, but the novelty wore off quick. Within 2 weeks, her HOA sent 4 more. One was scented, I swear, lavender and litigation. The tone grew sharper, less concerned citizen, more suburban warlord. I started saving them in a folder I labeled Moo Dicrus. She insisted my cattle posed an olfactory hazard, whatever that was supposed to mean. One letter accused my rooster, yes, my single rooster, of setting off anxiety episodes among Whisper Ridge joggers. I was tempted to write back and ask which of her residents were emotionally unwell enough to get triggered by poultry, but I held back. Barely. Still, I stayed patient. I wasn't trying to start a war. But Karen? She was already building trenches. Next came the drone. I was feeding hay when I heard the high-pitched buzz. Too smooth to be a horsefly, too mechanical to ignore. I looked up and spotted it, a black quadcopter hovering above the fence line, inching deeper over my property, camera pointed square at my calving pen. I waved it off, but it lingered. "Get lost!" I shouted and lobbed a fistful of alfalfa skyward. I missed, but the drone zipped back toward Whisper Ridge like I'd fired a shotgun. The next day, another letter came. Per Whisper Ridge HOA's visual audit, we observed improper waste containment and open exposure of livestock during feeding. Please consult your agricultural conduct guidelines. My jaw dropped. She was using the drone for surveillance on a property she had no jurisdiction over. I was furious. The kind of fury that starts hot and settles cold, slow burning, heavy, and stubborn. I felt invaded. I'd grown up here, slept under these stars, tended to sick calves through blizzards. Now, some HOA president in white yoga pants thought she had the right to monitor my animals like they were a backyard eyesore. I installed cameras the next day, real ones, mounted on trees and barn corners. I wasn't going to let Karen play spy games unchecked, but she didn't stop. She filed a complaint with the county, alleging I was operating an unlicensed animal waste facility. Yes, because cow pies apparently constituted hazardous material. The inspector that came out was polite, thorough, and apologetic. "Sir," he said while sidestepping a very normal pile of manure, "we got a formal report that you were burying chemical waste. I had to respond. But clearly it's just cows." I nodded, biting the inside of my cheek to keep from swearing. "You want coffee?" I asked him. "It'll help wash down the stupidity." He laughed. "Honestly, I've seen worse." There was a lady in Bozeman who called in a goat for emotional terrorism. "Let me guess," I said. "HOA. Bingo." I knew then Karen wasn't just being annoying. She was escalating, turning the law into her personal bulldog. She even started posting flyers on neighborhood bulletin boards claiming my cattle had neurological agitation and were a potential vector for emotional harm. Emotional harm from cows. The next week, my feed delivery guy pulled up laughing. "Dude," he said, "someone at the gate asked me if your cows were aggressive. I said only if you try to date one." I tried to laugh, but inside, I was boiling. I'd worked too damn hard for this ranch to be treated like a biohazard. It wasn't just the absurdity, it was the entitlement. Karen walked around like Whisper Ridge was the Vatican, and she was the Pope of perfect lawns. And as for me, I was tired, angry, but more than that, I was watchful, because this wasn't going away. And I had a gut feeling Karen Lynch hadn't even played her best card yet. I should have known something big was coming when I found the flamingos. It was a Saturday morning, sky clear, breeze crisp, cows grazing peacefully like they always did. I was heading toward the southern pasture when I saw them, 16 bright pink plastic flamingos planted neatly along the fence line facing Whisper Ridge. They stood like a row of absurd sentinels guarding the border between my world and theirs. And right in the middle of them was a giant laminated sign. "Farms are filthy. Keep nature where it belongs." Below it, in smaller italicized font, "Whisper Ridge HOA, for a clean, quiet tomorrow." I stood there for a minute, just blinking. One of my cows wandered up beside me, snorted, and started licking one of the flamingos. She had better composure than I did. By noon, I learned the flamingos were just the opening act. A group of residents from Whisper Ridge, all dressed in matching white tracksuits, appeared along the walking trail with signs that looked professionally printed. "Moo no more. Smells like tyranny. Cattle free is the way to be." Leading them, of course, was Karen Lynch, megaphone in hand, shouting things like, "We demand a view free of livestock-induced trauma." I watched from my side of the fence, arms crossed, chewing a toothpick out of sheer restraint. One of the protesters waved at me, as if this was some kind of bake sale and not a deeply personal insult to everything I stood for. Then Karen looked me dead in the eye and yelled through the megaphone, "You have 14 days to relocate your animals away from our community border, or Whisper Ridge will take independent action to protect its serenity." I stared back, stunned, for a beat. Then I started laughing, not politely, not nervously, just an honest, belly-deep laugh that made one of my cows turn her head in confusion. That seemed to throw her off. Karen's face twitched as she lowered her megaphone and stormed toward the property line. She stopped inches from my fence, glaring up at me. "We're done being nice. This HOA has lawyers, Mr. Hale." I leaned on the fence post and tilted my head. "Well, Karen, I've got bulls with attitude and lawyers who work for beef jerky and whiskey. Let's see who lasts longer." She scoffed and spun on her heel, nearly tripping on a sprinkler head. That night, I found a formal letter from Whisper Ridge HOA stuffed in my mailbox, even though they had no legal right to contact me in any official capacity. It was written in bold legalistic language, filled with phrases like community integrity, excessive olfactory impact, and anticipated drop in property valuation. At the bottom, in gold ink, "If you do not address this matter, Whisper Ridge reserves the right to act." That last line sat with me. I couldn't shake it. It wasn't just HOA overreach, it sounded like a threat. My blood was hot, but I forced myself to stay focused. I called my lawyer, Marlene, the next morning. She's been handling land use law for ranchers in the county longer than Karen's been coloring her hair platinum. She laughed after reading the letter. They think they can regulate agricultural zoning from across a fence? Let 'em try. But you better keep eyes open, Cody. This kind of HOA thinks they own the sun. The very next day, I noticed someone had cut one of my private property signs in half, clean through with what looked like garden shears. That wasn't protest. That was trespass. I checked my cameras. Nothing. They must have come from the walking trail under cover of night. My stomach twisted. Karen was bluffing less and acting more. Then came the family picnic for peace. Yep. They hosted a picnic on their side of the trail. Kids with balloons, folding chairs lined up like a PTA meeting. Someone even brought a bubble machine. It all seemed innocent, except for the fact that every speech on the loudspeaker was about the aggressive rural encroachment next door, which was me. A teenager in a cow costume handed out flyers reading, "Did you know your neighbor's cattle can carry over 200 types of pathogens? Stop the spread. Support the fence relocation initiative." I stood there, fists clenched, teeth grinding behind a forced smile. This wasn't protest anymore. It was propaganda, and I was done pretending it was just eccentricity. I filed a no-contact warning with the sheriff that same evening. He nodded, jotted something in his notebook, and muttered, "That woman gives HOA a bad name." Thing is, I wasn't scared, not yet, but I was alert. I knew pressure had to pop somewhere, and I could feel the ground shifting under my boots. Karen wasn't bluffing anymore. I don't scare easy. You grow up on a ranch. You get used to things that make other folks shiver. Calving in a blizzard, power outages during wildfires, bulls that weigh twice what you do. But when my phone rang that morning and I saw Sheriff Doug's name on the screen at 6:23 a.m., something in my chest tightened. "Cody," he said, voice low and urgent, "your cows are on the highway." I froze. What? One's already been hit by a van. Another's in someone's pool. I suggest you get down here. Fast. I didn't even hang up before I was running. Boots half-laced, heart beating so hard it echoed in my teeth. My truck barely had time to warm up before I hit the gravel, tires kicking up dust as I gunned it toward the south pasture. My mind raced faster than the engine. The fencing. The damn fence. I'd reinforced it just last month. Thick timber posts, steel wiring, buried anchor stakes. But when I turned the corner past the barn and saw the far line of my fence, my stomach dropped. It looked like a war zone. A section of the wire mesh, nearly 20 feet long, was sliced clean through, not sagging, not torn, but surgically opened, like someone had used bolt cutters with military precision. The gate next to it was swinging wide open, padlock lying crushed on the ground like an afterthought. The moment I stepped out of the truck, I could feel it in the air. Panic, raw and thick. Footprints, small, recent, leading from the fence toward the trail. Hoofprints everywhere, scattered hay, trampled grass. Then I spotted something lying by the cut wire. A pair of pink gardening gloves with rhinestones. Karen. I bolted for the security feed I had backed up to my tablet, and sure enough, there she was. Karen Lynch, at dawn, in a powder blue tracksuit and a determined frown, holding oversized gardening shears like she was pruning a hedge of sin. Behind her, two Whisper Ridge teens, those wannabe HOA security cadets I'd seen handing out newsletters about lawn color compliance, were standing around like her backup dancers. Then, on camera, I watched her march up, cut the fence, open the gate wide, and then she clapped. She literally clapped and shouted, "You're free now, sweet babies, go. Be wild again." The boys flailed their arms and chased the cows out, waving pieces of cardboard with "Liberate Livestock" written in marker. One of them actually mooed. I watched in horror as my herd, spooked and scattered into the early morning fog. I swear something in me cracked. I jumped in the truck and tore off toward the highway, calling my dad as I drove. "They let the cows out," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "Karen, they cut the damn fence." There was a long pause, then just, "I'm on my way." When I reached the highway, it was chaos. Flashing lights, 2 patrol cars, a sheriff's cruiser. One of my prized cows, a 2-year-old heifer named Loretta, was lying on her side, injured but breathing. A shattered van stood a few yards away, front end crumpled like paper. The driver looked pale, holding an ice pack to his head. Another deputy flagged me down and pointed toward the neighboring cul-de-sac. "You've got one in someone's jacuzzi," he said. "And 2 more are headed up the hiking trail behind Ridgeview Elementary." "I'll get them," I muttered. But as I turned back toward the truck, I froze. A TV van pulled up. Reporters. A young woman in a tailored blazer hopped out with a cameraman in tow, eyes already scanning the scene like it was Oscar-worthy. "Are you the ranch owner? Can we speak with you about the incident?" I nearly exploded. "My cows aren't a headline," I snapped. "They're living, breathing animals, and they just got scattered across this county because some HOA lunatic decided she's a damn zookeeper. It wasn't professional, but it was real. By midday, I'd rounded up 7 of the herd. 2 were missing. 1 was severely injured, and another, Betsy, a pregnant Jersey, was limping and trembling. By nightfall, she lost the calf. I stayed by her side as the vet worked, my fingers clenched in the hay, fury boiling in my chest. I couldn't protect her in time. I couldn't protect any of them. This wasn't just about fences anymore. It was about deliberate harm, violation, sabotage, and I knew one thing with absolute clarity. Karen had declared war. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't even try. I sat in the barn next to Betsy, who'd just lost her unborn calf. Her sides rose and fell in slow, shaky rhythm, and I kept stroking her neck, whispering words neither of us believed. That loss settled deep in my gut, like guilt, like failure, like something personal, because it was. At sunrise, I grabbed a thermos of black coffee, holstered my tablet with all the security footage, and started the search for the 2 cows still missing. Their GPS tags had gone silent, probably torn off or malfunctioning. One was Maisie, a docile red Angus with eyes like melted chocolate. The other, Clover, young, skittish, and faster than sin. I printed out quick flyers with their photos and names. Missing, 2 cows. Valuable, irreplaceable. Seen anything? Call Cody Hale. I dropped copies at the diner, post office, gas station, feed store. I drove through neighborhoods, down trails, even stopped a garbage truck to ask if they'd seen anything. I was in full cow detective mode, chasing hoof prints through every inch of the county. And then, things took a turn. Around 11 a.m., my phone buzzed. Angie, a local middle school teacher and Whisper Ridge resident, left a voice message that started with, "I know this might sound insane, but I think I just saw one of your cows inside a garage." I called her back immediately. Her voice was trembling. "I was walking my dog past the end of Maple Grove Lane, where the HOA's little community watch center is, except it's really just a converted garage with a keypad. I heard movement inside, mooing, and, well, I saw a tail through a cracked window. I didn't even change clothes, just jumped into the truck, tires screaming on asphalt. When I pulled up to the garage, I was half expecting to find nothing, maybe just a scared dog. But Angie was there, arms crossed, waiting for me. I didn't want to open it without you. But Cody, if that cow's in there, something's really wrong." Together, we knocked. No answer. Then I heard it. A low, deep, unmistakable moo. And then, another. I grabbed a crowbar from my truck bed, shoved it into the side of the door, and popped the latch with one angry grunt. Inside, in the middle of a dim, cluttered garage surrounded by bags of mulch, folding chairs, and a weirdly large number of anti-coyote posters, stood Maisie and Clover. Clover's leg had a minor scrape, but otherwise, they were safe. Startled, hungry, but alive. I stood there, stunned. Angie covered her mouth. This is insane. Later, I'd find out the teens who helped Karen cut my fence thought they were rescuing the cows. Their plan, apparently, was to hide them until someone from animal welfare could come take them to a sanctuary. Karen had spun them some story about livestock abuse, unethical confinement, and ranch-induced trauma. When the sheriff showed up, he just stared at the cows for a long moment before muttering, "I've seen carjackings, break-ins. One guy even tried to fake his own kidnapping. But this? Cow napping. This is a new one." Word spread fast, faster than wildfire in dry season. By afternoon, neighbors I'd never even met stopped by the ranch. People from Whisper Ridge, even folks who used to shoot me dirty looks, came to offer support. One woman baked a casserole in the shape of a cow. A guy named Tom dropped off a poster board that read, "Cows, Karen," and the HOA. They scrambled, issued a lukewarm public statement. "We regret any misunderstanding and reaffirm our commitment to peaceful coexistence." I wasn't buying it, not after $87,000 in confirmed damages, not after one dead cow, one traumatized heifer, a miscarriage, and a community center that doubled as a bovine bunker. But now I had everything I needed. photos, video, eyewitnesses, a sheriff's report that included the phrase unlawful relocation of livestock, and most importantly, the full, furious attention of every rancher, news outlet, and lawman in the valley. Karen had made this personal. Now it was time to make it public. If you've never gone to war with someone in a linen pantsuit, you don't know true chaos. The day after I found Maisie and Clover locked up like barn prisoners in that garage, I knew I had enough to move. I hired my lawyer, Marlene, full-time, uploaded every second of security footage, every photo, and filed 2 lawsuits, 1 civil, 1 criminal. The charges? Trespassing, property destruction, animal endangerment, theft, and gross negligence. I wasn't just out for justice. I was out for truth, compensation, and exposure. And buddy, I got it. It started with a local news interview, just a small channel at first, KMTN5 out of Bozeman. But by the next day, the clip of me standing in front of my barn, eyes tired but jaw set, went viral. They cut my fence. They stole my cattle. This isn't some pasture spat. This is $200,000 worth of bloodlines and 15 years of my family's work. By Friday, it had hit national news. CNN ran a segment called Fence Fury and the HOA Queen. My inbox exploded with everything from legal advice to marriage proposals. Karen, she vanished. No public statement, no press. Just a legal team that came out swinging like we were in a corporate merger. Court day 1, we packed the courthouse. Reporters, Whisper Ridge residents, ranchers, even one guy who brought a homemade cardboard sign that said, "My HOA only stole my BBQ. Karen stole cows." Karen entered like a reality show villain, flanked by 3 lawyers, sunglasses on indoors, lips pressed so tight they could crack granite. The courtroom buzzed like a cattle chute at branding time. The judge was no nonsense. Silver hair, glasses low on his nose, and an expression that said, "Try me." My lawyer opened with evidence. The footage of Karen cutting my fence. The HOA kids waving cardboard signs like they were freeing the damn Bronx Zoo. Photos of dead and injured livestock. Vet reports, sheriff statements, Angie's testimony about the garage. Karen's team tried to spin it. Our client misunderstood the agricultural zoning boundaries. She believed the cows were in distress. There was no intent to harm. Then came my turn. I took the stand, looked that courtroom straight in the eye, and told the truth. About the letters, the drone, the flamingo protests, the clapping cow, liberation, and the moment I found Betsy, alone and bleeding, under a rusted roof while Karen gave a speech about property values. I held back tears. Barely. Then the judge leaned forward and said the words I'd been waiting for. Ignorance is not a defense. This was intentional, dangerous, and deeply unlawful. He banged his gavel once loud enough to make Karen flinch. Final ruling. Karen Lynch, guilty on multiple counts, sentenced to 8 months in jail and 3 years probation. HOA, liable for $196,000 in damages to be paid directly to me. Whisper Ridge, HOA, stripped of official recognition by the county for repeated abuse of power. The courtroom erupted. Karen's team stood frozen. One of her lawyers actually whispered, "We're gonna appeal." The judge just raised an eyebrow. "Feel free, but next time don't trespass with rhinestone gloves." As Karen was led away, she turned and hissed something about setting a precedent. I smiled. Damn right I did. When I stepped outside, a crowd had gathered. Reporters, neighbors, old ranchers I hadn't seen since high school. They cheered. A guy in a cowboy hat handed me a beer. Someone else played Rawhide from their truck stereo. It was loud, surreal, and more satisfying than I thought justice could be. But more than that, it was public. Karen's reign of control, fear, and suburban tyranny had ended, and not with a handshake or a settlement, but with cold, clean justice. For once, the cows weren't the only ones free. 3 months later, life on the ranch finally returned to something that resembled peace. The new reinforced concrete wall along the Whisper Ridge border stood tall and proud, topped with motion-activated floodlights and security cameras that could spot a raccoon blinking at midnight. And, dead center, chiseled in bold letters across the clean gray slab, it read, "Don't cut what you can't control, especially if it moves." I still chuckle every time I walk past it. Karen was long gone, Moved to a therapeutic HOA-free environment, as someone put it during the court-ordered apology letter read aloud to the Whisper Ridge residents. The HOA had dissolved, and in its place rose a volunteer-led garden committee. First rule, no flamingos. Ever again. To celebrate, I hosted the first ever Ranch Redemption BBQ right here on the property. We strung up fairy lights between fence posts, lined the long tables with gingham, and invited everyone, ranchers, town folks, even a few Whisper Ridge families who ditched their pressed khakis for denim. The star of the event? The Karen Special Burger, a triple-stack Angus patty slathered in passive-aggressive pepper jack, topped with legal onion rings, all served between two buns so dry you'd need to file a complaint. People laughed so hard I thought one woman would fall off her hay bale. I even printed a warning label on the menu. Overstepping boundaries may result in involuntary beef relocation. Someone gifted me a garden gnome holding bolt cutters. He's now permanently stationed by the front gate, named Sir Snip-a-Lot. As the sun dipped behind the mountains and music played, I looked out over my land, safe, solid, and once again, mine in full. My cows grazed undisturbed, kids laughed, and for the first time in a long while, I felt joy unfiltered by tension. It wasn't just a win for me, it was a reminder, for everyone there, that some fights are worth it. That barbed wire and concrete can guard borders, but community and courage guard peace. And Betsy, she's doing just fine, pregnant again. This time we're naming the calf Justice, because honestly, that's what the whole thing tasted like. Juicy, medium rare, and with just the right amount of bite.